and welcome to another amazing episode of Meet the Author. I have the beautiful Dr. Erin with us today, and we're talking about her chapter in Rising Relentlessly, our wonderful book that we got to co-author together. I'm so honored, and it comes out on April 22nd, 2026. We picked Earth Day for a reason, and I'm excited to dive into why Dr. Erin chose to be an author in this book and share her expertise and her heart. So, Dr. Erin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Rochelle. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. My name is Dr. Erin Luecke. I've been a physical therapist for 27 years. I am a certified health coach, and I have embarked on the journey of being an endocannabinoid educator and cannabis educator. And I have three amazing children. I live in Florida, and for the past, oh boy, 24 years I've lived in this state and been able to serve the people of the Tampa Bay area. So it's been such a blessing. And I am really excited to dive into this podcast with you.
I'm
And
excited as well. Yeah, I know you and I haven't had a lot of time to get to know each other. So I think this is like a really special time that we get to sit with each other and share with everyone just like the amazingness of where you have poured your heart into and what brought you to, CBD, cannabinoids in general. And that's the beautiful part about the community that we've been in two different spaces together. And so it brings people together on so many different levels, not just, the products themselves, but just the people's hearts coming together for a common cause. And that's what this book is all about. It's about sharing people's hearts, sharing their, desire to support others and really, be in that space of education. So that's something that I've always admired. Anytime I've watched anything else that you've done or just, being in that group together. So with that, I'd love to know what inspired you to say yes to writing about your story. I know it's not your whole story, but most of your story in this realm, in this anthology.
so I do believe in divine timing. I do believe that things happen for a reason. And I never would have thought my first book that I would be writing would be about cannabis. I have been writing for a long time. I am a songwriter, and I've just been an avid journaler my whole life. But like I said, I would have never thought in a million years that this first book that I would be co-authoring would be about that. And I think that the more that when I did say yes, leading up to that, I realized that I am one person, and the events leading up into that time, I really felt that the more that I talked about this with people, the more that I realized that more voices and more ears needed to learn about this. And I just felt that it was too important to not talk about it. And I spent too many years not talking about it because I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so and also being extremely inspired by many of my mentors and seeing those seven women had the privilege to read Rooted to Rise, and just so inspiring. And everybody's story was so different, but collaboratively, it was such a powerful voice that these authors portrayed in terms of stories to life. And that was extremely inspiring to me. And I could not do anything but say yes.
I love that. That's the whole reason why we're writing these books. And I relate to the whole, I never expected to be a cannabis, curator of anthologies or what have you, because on some level, even though we're educating about it, there's still that little twinge of, the stigma or the, parts around that and how, people perceive us and what have you. And the more we do it, the less we care about people's opinions, because really our energy needs to go towards educating and supporting people so that they can have a wide variety of options for their wellness. So I'm really glad that, you don't hide behind any of the stigmas or anything, especially with what you do in life. And so That brings me to the next question. Before writing, did you have any fears or hesitations about telling your story publicly?
100%. We really do protect our license in my profession, and we do know our scope of practice. And I think over the years, I've seen that I'm always having to pause. I'm always having to second guess, some of the education that I provide. And I always am very respectful of not diagnosing, treating, curing, or making any medical claims. And I think that when when I always made sure that anything that I did or do that is holding that and preserving that piece of my license, that but then again, with that said, one of the things that I was a little fearful of, like I'm sure many people, is just being super vulnerable.
Mhm.
It's something that, especially when we're trying to be strong and be a working mom and going and doing your profession and taking care of people, the thing that I've found and I've struggled with my whole life is asking for help and saying, okay, I do need help, and being a little bit more vulnerable, that I can not feel like I'm always being strong. And so writing this chapter made me really go and dive into some of the things that I've been working through in order to be a little bit more vulnerable. Because if I'm not, and I don't share parts of my story or be more vulnerable, I feel like I'm letting people down that need to hear,
Mhm.
maybe what I've been through. And so, and then you realize, especially as we get older, we have an audience of one. And I truly believe that anything that I do, if it continues to be leading in a forward direction, I do feel that it's something that I've been called to do, and I listen very closely. And so, we're not here to have, be something for everybody. We're here to be something for somebody that hear what we have to say or wants to learn more.
I love that. And you did such a great job in your chapter of bringing, I couldn't stop reading your chapter. It was like I just needed word to word to word to word because you invite so many different types of people into your words and your sharing, whether it's a personal share, whether it's a professional, whether it's an invitation for people to look at things a little bit differently. And so I love that. So talking about the writing part of it, was there something that surprised you about the process? I know, every publisher does things differently and what have you, and most of the time this is people's first experience, but was there something that surprised you that maybe you went into the process and you're like, oh, okay, it's gonna feel or look or whatever, but it didn't, like, I don't know whether it met your expectations or didn't in terms of just that personal experience that you had?
Well, I just want to first and foremost say that the way that you guys have created this space for us to come in and literally deliver our heart, pour our heart and soul and love into every bit of with this process. I think for me, especially being a busy working mom, but also knowing that I did not want to miss out on an opportunity to be able to, go and dive in 110%. I don't work like that. If I do something and say yes to something, it needs to be with everything that I have. And so I think in this process, I had no idea what to expect, but what I got was something that tailored to each one of us. And I can't really speak for the other authors, but I think collaboratively we have voiced that this process has been so nurturing, but also giving a foundation and giving parameters, but letting us continue to be authentic with where we're coming from. And also the way that I write sometimes is not super timely, but just also giving us those boundaries so that we could come and have that time to then have you guys be able to then give us feedback. So for me, it's been the most beautiful process. I have shared Wildly Free with so many people because I truly feel like you have allowed people to come in just as they are. And for me, that's super, super important. And I felt loved and supported this whole process. So thank you so much.
I love that. I just recently did my own podcast with Ashley Elizabeth, one of the editors, and one of the things that she asked was, what do you hope that people will get out of this experience? And you just nailed it. So thank you. It was all about love, community support, and accepting people for who they are. I feel that so much of this industry is about fitting a mold to the profit expectation. And, this was nothing that any of us ever grew up going, oh, I want to publish books. We come from different spaces. And so thank you for sharing that because it really means a lot to me that you felt our hearts and our purpose and that we're just doing the messy together. And that's really what it's about. And I think that that's what life is about and just being in community together. So was there a hard part about writing your story? And if so, why was it difficult for you?
So I thought about this leading up until today. I think that there's two parts. One is that in kind of going back to being strong and not really admitting where we're struggling. And I was struggling and I think it was hard because I had to respect, some of the things that led me to where I was and where I came to when I started my journey with cannabis. And there was relationships, there was situations that, definitely were impactful in leading up into that time that I wanted to be super respectful of. So when you're writing your story, all those things start to flood back in. So you're dealing with all those raw emotions and you're dealing with, even though you've done the work to process where you were and where you've come from and where you are now, it's revisiting it. But also I kind of realized how much stronger that I was and how much work that I did. But it's still, when you're writing those words on the page, it becomes almost like this flooding of emotion back in, but you're able to put the boundaries back up so it doesn't affect you and to bring you back. So that was that was definitely difficult. And then it was knowing what I've come to know is that there's super big disconnect in the healthcare profession, in the medical profession. In every time, I mean, I could have written a whole entire book on the disconnect, but I realized that I was seeing the disconnect and I was writing this book, and then I was going to work, and then I would meet just the layperson on the street and realize and having a conversation with them. So it was almost like I was flooded with all these people who were struggling, and I see it on every single day. And so, but then realizing that there's these people I could help, these people are open, and then there's people that don't know, so they're not open, or they haven't been open yet. And then there's people who are so shut off, and also boundaries of my professional license. So that to me was a struggle because I wanted to make sure that I came to that chapter with a more broad view of what's happening, but knowing that I wanted to keep that in the forefront because this is what's going to be happening. And this is kind of something that I feel that there's a non-negotiable. It's something that is so powerful that's happening right now, and we're all kind of doing it together in different ways. But it's something that bringing it to the forefront was really difficult, but I knew it had to be done. And sometimes the most difficult things are the ones that we have to do the most. And so you realize that we're all ready for this. We're all ready for this. But that was a really difficult thing because I just wanted to continue to dive more into why the disconnect is there. But I think the main points are there and I'm looking forward to sharing that in the book.
Well, you did it in the most amazing, sensitive way. I believe that you honored the balance between the two. So well done. You've talked about, the shifts in your self-evaluation of, you're strong and all of those, trying to find the balance and all of that. So was there a moment or something that clicked inside of you, shifted in you personally during this experience over the last, what, 6, 7 months now?
Has it really been that long?
I think somewhere around there, about 5, 6 months. Yeah,
Flying by so fast.
I know.
There, I think that there was a shift, and I think the more that I continue to just show up and be consistent, I do believe that the more we just are consistent and more we put our muscle, into what we're doing, the more that, I wouldn't say it becomes easy, but it becomes less painful in that respect. But I think that the more that I saw what was happening, the more confidence I had, the more confidence I had to speak or to listen, listening to what someone has to say or having a conversation with somebody. I think it automatically, when you welcome those conversations and see where there might be a disconnect, just the more that I listen. And I think that that's something that, we can all talk, but listening to that a little bit more is so important. And I think that's where I felt the shift, is just showing up and being consistent with my message.
I love that. And I love watching your reels and how you just show up authentically and, while you're educating, but it doesn't have to be even in words. It can just be in living the example. So thank you so much. How did you support, or how did the support of the community, the way that we've structured everything, help you through the process?
I don't think I could do it without them.
I love the community aspect.
It's a community of bringing people together that have come similar, maybe similar, a little similar backgrounds, but so different,
Hmm.
different personalities, different backgrounds, different stories. And I think that that's just the beauty, is that, I've known a few of you a lot longer than I've known some of the other authors. And just to see how that relationship has just helped me and supported me, even from the first time that I met some of you guys. And so I think that we all can be communicating, and I think we did, in our meetings and in our times together and our conversations. I think we realized that, you don't have to always show up the perfect way, or you can say this and it's okay, or how's your day going on a scale of 1 to 5? How do you feel your chapter went on a scale of 1 to 5? And from, the moment that we had the beginning of our meetings to the end, I mean, just the shift, because everybody knew that they weren't alone in some of these things that they were feeling. And when you go and that you're writing something so important, I mean, I wrote what I wrote because it was important to me, but but then you get yourself out of the way, because you realize that you're just one person. And when you get out of your own way and realize that no matter how uncomfortable you feel about what you're doing, whether it's going on social media, going and writing this book or chapter, or having a conversation, that it does not, it's not about us. It's about what we're doing in our mission to be able to lead other people on their own mission. And
Hmm.
when you're not well and you're not feeling good, or you're stuck in the hospital, or you're mentally run down, or you're just sad for the day, you cannot show up for yourself. You can't show up for your family. You can't show up to work. And I think eventually you realize it doesn't matter. But being able to be surrounded by all those people in this journey was like so empowering and uplifting. And I think it was one of the best parts about this process, is just all being in it together and then weaving all our stories into one. It's so cool. It
I
really
love
is.
how it created like a melting pot and there was nothing else brought but just pure heart in all of our gatherings. And one of my favorite parts is having those gatherings so that you can connect with yourself, you can connect with others, and you can feel like, we also have like a Facebook group where people, just can go in there and randomly just kind of share how they're feeling. I think it's so important to have that level of support. Whether I'm trying to figure out how to give that level of support for individual authors, because I feel that there's so much power in collective voices, but I do understand that there's a lot of people that are going to be writing, books on their own and what have you. And I try to figure out like how can they have that same feeling. So it's almost like grouping people together that are writing their books at the same time, maybe collecting, having a collective space there. But yeah, there's just something special about writing together and being in an anthology and just having that collective voices. So, what do you hope that readers will take away from your chapter that you poured all of your heart into?
I writing this chapter, there's so many different people because I do run into so many different people, and whether it's my friends, family, whether it's my patients, I think it's it's just getting people curious enough to want to lean in
Mhm.
and getting what and leaning in a way that they need, not what maybe somebody else needs. And I want them to know that, you know, kind of going into something, because I know that I spent years with such a stigma, and looking back, I realized how many people that I couldn't serve because I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so to me, I can sit there and, get upset about it, or I can be empowered to continue to share this. And knowing that if someone isn't open yet, that just means that I just need to continue to do what I'm doing, because there may be a time when they do feel like they're ready to lean in. And so whether it's the person that I meet that is struggling with maybe just some knee pain, just that I know, or a friend of a friend, or it's a clinician who says, wow, like I've been doing all these things with my patients, and I'm really missing a piece, a tool in the toolbox. And I think that the more that we just start to educate about, the main contributing factor to all regulating all other um, of our processes in our body, the more that we just educate on that endocannabinoid system, first and foremost, people start to understand. So I feel like just them saying, wow, I've never heard of the ECS. What is that? And being able to just let them know just enough where they want to run and look it up. I did have somebody in my small group that said, no, I've never known about it. And about 5-10 minutes later, he texted me back and said, wow, this is fascinating. I knew nothing about this. And so those are the conversations that I love to have. And then also empowering other clinicians to say, this is something that I really need to dive into because my patients' lives are at stake. And so, and not only for their patients, for them, because
Yes.
I know in our profession now, it is really, really difficult because we continue to pour out in all healthcare professionals, and really in any job, you're always going to be sacrificing a piece of yourself. But it's how strong can you show up for yourself, and how healthy can you be doing it, that allows you to be able to, come to work every day and show up and feel good and aligned with what you're doing. Because many people are aligned with what they do. They just need better ways to stay healthy doing it, and to feel like they're balanced. And when I say balanced, I know that you can't be balanced in everything, but it's knowing when to pick and choose, and knowing that your mind, body, and spirit are healthy, and being able to go and open yourself up to the power of cannabis, which, still to this day tends to not roll off my tongue the easiest. But then I realized that all the research and all the people that have guided me in my journey of learning more, I'm not going to stop talking about it, and I'm proud to talk about it. It's just breaking those stigmas and barriers down, that because the first thing that people think, it goes right to their brain. And whether it's their parents, whether it's a situation that they dealt with over the years, that is what's keeping them from being open to the plan. It's not necessarily their view, it's somebody else's view that then caught up with them, that they just haven't broken down yet. And so this is for everybody. This is for everybody. And when I say the word cannabis to people, I want them to be uncomfortable. I want them to be uncomfortable enough to ask the questions. And that's what we're all here for, is to be able to answer them. Or I'm the first one to say, if I don't know it, you guys have helped me so much through that process, but I'm the first one to say, I will get you in touch with a person that does know.
I love
because
that. Yeah.
I don't want you to miss out.
Yeah, sitting in the discomfort with other people is such an honor on all levels in terms of, going from the discomfort to the normalization of
Mhm.
things. And I think that that's, really kind of a central message that we all have in our stories is just normalizing something that should have never been an issue. And there's so much history behind that. So I encourage people to look that up. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. So, if someone is listening for the not just the education part of your chapter, but they want to know, should I be a part of an anthology or should I write my story? What would you tell them? What would you say to encourage them to step into their brave, just like you just did?
If we have something that we feel called to do, um, and we feel that it's something that is important to us, my first thing is to say, go for it. Sometimes when we get nervous about something or feel that nobody's going to relate to it, you'd be really surprised because the more that you open yourself up, the more you realize that either someone needs to hear it or they're going through the same entire thing. And so, life is meant to be shared, stories are meant to be shared. And we were not put on this earth to live alone and to go through life and walk alone. And so I encourage everybody to really go and think about what it is that's important to you and to share your message. And because somebody out there is their life, you're their lifeline. And so every word matters, every person matters. You're created with the most divine, beautiful things from birth, that you are here to show up, and unfortunately life gets in the way. But when you break down those things that life tries to throw at us, we realize that we are who we are, and growing and evolving every day. And that is something that we're done here. So if you have something to say, by all means, start writing it down, pen to page, and your story is not done.
I love that. Well, without giving a lot away of the earlier part of your chapter, I want to ask an unscripted question to you. One of the parts that hit me the most was that final moment where you had to stop doing something that you love doing. And I want to ask, what would you tell younger Dr. Erin in that moment that you know now? What would
That you
you
don't
tell
have to
her?
do it all. That you don't have to do it all. It's okay to ask for help. Um, don't wait till things get really out of control in order to lean into other people's help. Um, and just know that when something feels uncomfortable, it's really important to really know where that source is coming from, because relationships are affected. And it's important to, no matter what we've been through in our lives, to go and really start to find your own voice. And it's and your health is your number one priority. I think we all know that we're given one temple, and how we treat it is how we can go through life and navigate life. And life is way too beautiful to not be able to show up and be healthy to do what you're doing. So breaking stigmas, that's, for me, it was something that um, way too long, way too long. And it wasn't based on any facts. It was just been based on what I thought and what I was told and what I didn't know. And so I look back on the 27 years, and my career's not done. It might just look a little different moving forward in terms of being in clinical practice, but everything that I've done in that pivotal point, a few years ago, I can't be more thankful for where I am now. And there's so much more to be done, and that's a little scary too. But now, knowing what I do know, um, we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to do it.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing yourself in such a vulnerable space, such as a podcast. So thank you. It's one thing to write it, it's another to speak it. So I really appreciate your continued bravery throughout this process. Thank you so much for everyone that's listening. If you want to get connected with Dr. Erin, we're going to provide all the ways below. And that way you can just personally reach out to her. She's an amazing source of just kindness and education and the connection between the two. So thank you so much, Dr. Erin. And thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate you. And we look forward to hearing what you think about her amazing chapter and how you connect to it and your takeaways from it. So thank you, everyone.